Hello everyone, welcome to this prediction video on my channel. Today I'll be looking over the Africa Cup of Nations 2023. I'll be going over the groups in the group stage and of course my knockout predictions all the way to the final. Before I get started, I'd like to give a thanks and shout out to everyone that watched my Asian Cup predictions video, commented, liked. Was very happy to see the attention it was getting in such a short amount of time, and if this video has the same impact, I'll be very happy. Let's get into the predictions.
So let's start with Group A, where we've got Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau. Ivory Coast go in as one of the favourites. Suppose I'm not surprised that it's happened, seeing as they've got some good players such as Sebastian Haller or Willy Bolly in defence. In the Africa Cup of Nations before, they topped a group with 7 points, which did have Equatorial Guinea in the group, and then they only lost out to Egypt on penalties. So suppose last Africa Cup of Nations, they were building something. To me, this is the group of death. I know there are a lot of people that say Group C, but to me there's a clear winner in Group C. But here in Group A, there are two big names, two good underdogs that have the potential to sneak in that top two. And whilst I would expect Ivory Coast to be top two, I don't think first place is a surety. As for the other teams, Nigeria, well, they've been in a mess lately. They've got some very good attacking options such as Victor Osimhen, Victor Boniface, and there's still various others, even though Iheanacho and Ahmed Musa are still getting called up. I don't know about Iheanacho, but Musa, it's been a while since I've heard from it. The midfield, I believe there's only four of them called up, so I think we would end up seeing a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-4-3. Defence have been looking bad. The selection of keep aren't good either. They also have Jose Peseiro as their manager, who isn't good. This isn't the first time he's been struggling with a national team. And also, they drew at home to Lesotho and away to Zimbabwe, so the form isn't looking good. I think they could probably finish anywhere between first to third, maybe fourth, but I think they've got enough quality in the attack to stop them from getting completely knocked out. And then Equatorial Guinea, they're one of the good underdogs here. They've to the quarterfinals in the last Africa Cup of Nations. Good defensive side. Pedro Obiang is still there, beat Algeria and knocked out Mali, and only finished runners-up to Ivory Coast. The concern I have with Equatorial Guinea is they don't really kill off games, and 1-0 has been working for them, especially if you're coming up against Ivory Coast and even against Nigeria with their good attack. If Equatorial Guinea's 1-0 up, then what's to say that those two teams, for example, don't turn the game around with their quality attackers? And then Guinea-Bissau, they've been on the rise. They're a team I think are being slept on. When looking at the history of these other three teams, it's very easy to put Guinea-Bissau bottom. But they actually not only drew with Nigeria, but they won away to Nigeria, as well as topping the group, as well as getting the better over Sierra Leone, who were their main competitors in the qualification group stage. In the qualifiers, they've been doing decent as well. This, I think, certainly is the least predictable group, in my opinion. My order, I'm going to say Equatorial Guinea a fourth. I think whilst the 1-0s have been working for them, it can be a problem if they're not killing teams off. Like they were even doing this against like Liberia and Namibia in the World Cup qualifiers. I'm going to say Nigeria gets second. What they have up front should be more than good enough to make sure they avoid a complete disaster. They're a mess. The manager's tactics aren't good at all, but I think they'll have enough to get through. I'm going for Guinea-Bissau to finish second. They could get to the quarterfinals if they have a kind draw in the round. If they have a kind matchup in the round of 16, maybe they could go far, but I think they've got enough to finish second. And of course, I'm going to go with Ivory Coast to finish first. They're definitely the team you can be sure about finishing in the top two. And with the likes of Sebastian Haller, who's been very consistent since leaving West Ham, I'd imagine they'll get 7 points. Let's go to Group B. When this first came out, I was thinking Ghana in first place, but they've not played that well lately under Chris Hughton. To me, I think this is the most straightforward, apart from maybe the bottom. Cape Verde, Mozambique, two Portuguese-speaking nations. It's been not easy for me to decide which one would finish higher. Of course, Ghana have some quality players, such as Mohamed Kudus and Inaki Williams. Egypt with the likes of Mohamed Salah, Mohamed El Shanawi. There's also the striker, I forgot his name. Both teams have the quality to get through. I say Mozambique finished fourth. Do they have enough? It's kind of hard to tell, and I certainly don't think they would get into that top two. Cape Verde, I would say, will get third place, and I think they'll be one of the teams that don't get to the round of 16. I'll say Ghana gets second, and Egypt will get first place. On to the next group: Senegal, Cameroon, Guinea, and Gambia. So for this group, this is an interesting group because Guinea have been on the rise, Cameroon are questionable, Gambia haven't been the same team. Senegal, you would imagine, will top the group. Senegal also bought order Gambia and I think Guinea as well. Guinea want revenge against Gambia, Gambia want revenge against Cameroon. Senegal drew to Guinea in the group stage last time, so there's some interesting stories that will come out of this. Senegal, they're not the same team as they were when they won the Africa Cup of Nations, but this is a team that still should be getting fairly far in this tournament. Cameroon, well, there's a lot of question marks about Rigobert Song. I don't think he's done that well since he's come in. Yes, he started in the playoffs of the World Cup qualifiers and actually beat Algeria, but I think they had a lot of luck that went their way. And then didn't actually do that well in the World Cup, apart from when Serbia's defence collapsed. And of course they played the B team against Brazil, but they wanted it more. And then of course in the qualifiers they ended up dropping points twice to Namibia, including losing to them. They got there having beaten Burundi. We don't know how well Andre Onana's going to be because of his form at Manchester United. I certainly think he is the best option for Cameroon. And of course, they do have some good attackers with the likes of Eric Choupo-Moting, Vincent Aboubakar, and Eric Toko Akambe. It's going to be interesting. In Guinea themselves, they've been progressing as well. Gambia, don't think that they're as good as they were in the last Africa Cup of Nations. And it even took the final day for them to qualify to this stage. And they were struggling a bit against Congo in both games. Overall, I'm going to say Gambia get fourth. I'm going to say Cameroon get third, and they're going to be one of the third place teams to exit in the group stage. Yes, that's going to be my big shock upset prediction. First of my two, and they're going to go out. I say Guinea gets second, something like 4 points. And Senegal, I'm going to say first. I would imagine they'll get around 7 points. Don't think they'll get 4 points, maybe 9 points. That's my order. Up next, Group D: Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Angola. Top two's fairly certain. There's an interesting battle for third. Algeria have called up a good squad. Anthony Mandrea, I imagine, will be the starting goalkeeper. And Raissam Bolli, the legendary goalkeeper. In my opinion, the GOAT goalkeeper, but I don't think he's going to be playing. No Said Benrahma, Riyad Mahrez. There's a lot of good players in this squad. I think they're going to come back better than they did in the last Africa Cup of Nations. Burkina Faso, there was a time when I did think this was the most underrated team in Africa. I don't know how far they're going to go, but I do expect them to give a good account of themselves. And then it's between Mauritania and Angola. Mauritania have started to become a regular in this Africa Cup of Nations. They qualified ahead of Gabon. Angola, first time back, I think since 2012, when they did actually in the same group as Burkina Faso, and they were up against Ivory Coast as well. So that's some interesting links as well. To me, I'm going to say Mauritania finish fourth. I think it's Mauritania, actually. I'm going to say third place is Angola. Second, I'm going to say Burkina Faso. And I think Algeria will get first place. But if you want more on Algeria, I would recommend checking out Dean Ami. very charismatic guy, very knowledgeable all on players and all things the Algerian national team. On to Group E. Tunisia, Mali, South Africa, Namibia. This looks competitive apart from Namibia. Namibia do actually play a bordering nation in South Africa, so I think that's going to be a fun one for them to play. Tunisia, they play Mali again, having played them in the World Cup qualifiers and the last Africa Cup of Nations, where we've had a win, a draw, and a loss, and you can apply it to whichever team. South Africa can certainly feel that they've got a chance of getting in that top two. Percy Tau, who's been a very good player for them recently. Mali, I don't know what to expect from them that much. I wasn't on the hype train for them in the last Africa Cup of Nations because I felt they were a better team in 2019. But they've got good individual players that will be here, such as Yves Bissouma of Tottenham. And Tunisia, there's no Fajani Sassi, no Wabi Kazri, and no Hannibal Medri. In the case of Hannibal Medri, I've never really seen his impact, so I don't see how much of a loss this is, or I don't know how much of a loss it is either. I'm sure people will let me know. I don't think he would have got this hype if he wasn't academy graduate at Manchester United. They've still got a good team. They definitely gave a good account of themselves against Denmark and France. I'm thinking they get 7 points here. Not sure who they draw to. I think they get a draw or a win to one of each of Mali and South Africa. I would imagine they'd have a bigger win if it was against South Africa. But overall, my table, I'm going to say Namibia finished fourth, South Africa third, Mali second, and I'm going to say Tunisia get first place. So now Group F. This is one of my favourite groups. To me, there's a clear first, a clear second, but I think second place is very competitive. Morocco, I'll get them out of the way first. They've got a very good goalkeeper, a very solid back four. They're one of the favourites to win this tournament. And with strikers like An-Nesyri, I do think they've got a strong chance of winning this tournament. I don't think Tanzania are going to be competing. And Tanzania are here because they managed to get a draw against Algeria, which Uganda didn't. And also the fact that Uganda didn't win a single home game in qualifying. But I don't think Tanzania's in the running in terms of advancing. The interesting thing for me is who gets second out of DR Congo and Zambia, because these two were my two dark horses going into the draw, and I'm still going to stand by it because I think both of them have a good chance of getting to the quarterfinals. Well, I'll start with DR Congo. Sebastian Degerbe has come in and done a great job. DR Congo were in the mud a bit, having not qualified for the last Africa Cup of Nations. They had a bad start for this qualifiers, and he came in the last two games, got an away win against Gabon, and then beat Sudan to get DR Congo top, in fact. And this guy, he's managed to get Uganda to the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations round of 16, only lost 1-0 to Senegal, as a matter of fact. Zambia, they look good again after having missed out on the last Africa Cup of Nations and weren't that good in the World Cup qualifiers. But they've got some attackers that have been on fire: Patson Daka, Fashion Sakala. And having watched them in qualifiers, they were very good to watch. And they even beat Ivory Coast in qualifiers, albeit it was at home, and Ivory Coast won at home as well. This Zambia team looks good. The only thing is, I would say Avram Grant, he needs to maybe fix Zambia up defensively a bit. There was also the disappointing loss to Niger, but it was only one game, and DR Congo also lost to Sudan, and I'm not thinking so differently about their air chances. Of course, they beat Congo 4-2 as well in the last international break of the World Cup qualifiers. I'm going to say Tanzania get fourth. Third place, I'm going to say DR Congo. Second place, I'm going to say Zambia. First, I'm going to go Morocco. My thinking with deciding second place is I think DR Congo and Zambia are both going to get 4 points. Start off with a 2-2, something like that, against each other, where they play each other on the first day of Group F. Then I think they'll both lose to Morocco. maybe about the same scoreline, although I probably fit DR Congo's chances better, maybe a 2-1. Although, having said that, Zambia play Morocco on the last day, so the intensity might not be there as much as Morocco would owe for the first 2 games. They got 6 points. And I also think Zambia is going to get a bigger win against Tanzania than DR Congo will. So let's go to the knockout. Starting with the left side of the bracket, Guinea-Bissau versus Guinea. This is a tough game to call, a Guinea derby, considered both on multiple occasions. I'm tempted to put Guinea-Bissau in the quarterfinals, but Guinea are a more consistent team, and we can be more sure about them getting to the knockouts than Guinea-Bissau, so I'm going to say they'll go through. Algeria versus South Africa. South Africa, don't think they'll play too badly, but I think this is going to be an Algeria win. Something like 2-0. I think they should winning this with not much problem. Egypt versus Nigeria. This will be one of the ones to look at. Egypt looks more like a much more settled team. I don't think it would be a one-sided game, but I think Egypt should win. Morocco versus Mali. This will be a game to maybe test themselves against each other. I've still got Morocco to go through. They've got clinical strikers like El Nesri and good defence. Ansin Hakimi, Isais, Agued and Mazraoui. I'm going to be picking them. The left side of the bracket, I'm confident about the road to the semi-finals. The right side, however, I think we can get 5 or 6 teams that could potentially be getting to that semi-final. Ghana vs Zambia, I think this could be a good game. Kudus is a very key player for Ghana. He'll be a big influence of if they can go far in this tournament. But I've actually got Zambia to win this. They've got some clinical attackers. They've got pace and strength to them. I'm picking Zambia to do this. And this will be their 4th game in San Pedro, as with Morocco, if both are to finish in the top 2. And Ivory Coast versus Angola. I think this is the easiest one to call on this side of the bracket. I'm picking Ivory Coast to go through. And Tunisia versus Burkina Faso. This is a hard one. Definitely pick both on several occasions. If I'm going to pick one, I think I'm just going to go with Tunisia. Maybe a 1-0 win. It's hard, but I'm just about going to pick Tunisia. Senegal versus DR Congo. Well, I'm actually going to say this goes to penalties, to be honest. And once again, Sebastian Deserbi goes up against Senegal like he did with Uganda back in 2019. I think DR Congo could definitely give Senegal a good game, but I would still say Senegal, certainly on penalties. I'm not sure how good the DR Congo keeper will be in goal, but Senegal definitely have the experience with penalty shootouts, so I'm going to be picking them. Now on to the quarterfinals. Let's start with Guinea versus Algeria. This is a game that I think could be low scoring. Guinea can give a good account of themselves. And Algeria is an opponent they play in the World Cup qualifiers. I don't think they have enough. I think Algeria are going to the semi-final. Egypt versus Morocco, a repeat of the quarterfinal in the last Africa Cup of Nations. I think it'll be a close one. I think this is another one that could go to extra time, but I do think Morocco would win this by 1 goal. Matter of 1-0, 2-1. I just think they're the stronger team overall. And now Zambia versus Ivory Coast. This one is in Bouake. This is an interesting game. I'm actually going to pick Zambia to go through. Even though their win against Ivory Coast was at home, we saw how much they really took down Ivory Coast. The way they won 3-0, and yes, this is going to be in Ivory Coast, and I do think it will be a closer game, but Zambia have players that can finish. They've got the speed to catch out Ivory Coast on the counter-attack. I think both sides are going to score, but I think Zambia have got this. I'm going to pick Zambia to knock out Ivory Coast. And there'll be more pressure on Ivory Coast. They've got more to lose, which I think will help Zambia mentally, and I'm picking them. And now the final quarterfinal. This is the one I was just really struggling with. In fact, in my editing, this was the last one I'd sorted because I've just been struggling with this a lot. Tunisia, I think, have got better since that last Africa Cup of Nations, and Senegal, I think, have regressed. Tunisia, of course, had 2 good World Cup games. in some ways it's too good to be true for Senegal to get to 3 finals in a row. But I think if it's going to be, if any team's going to stop them, I think based on what I've got, I think Tunisia have the best chance. There's a lot of question marks with Tunisia though. They can finish in the round of 16. They could finish in the semi-finals. And if they got Zambia, that would be a potential nice road to the final for them. I think Senegal just about have enough. If Sarr's available to play, I think he's going to be a big influence in the game. I think this could also go to penalties, or maybe a 1-goal win for either side. You could potentially be getting Senegal getting to the semi-final having won 2 penalty shootouts. And to the semi-finals, one I'm sure about, one less certain about, one I'm sure Algeria about, versus Morocco. If there's one team that's very determined to beat Morocco, as opposed to winning for the sake of winning, it is Algeria. Brothers in culture, rivals in football. What a game this will be. I think both teams have a good chance of getting to the final. This is one of these games, I think, that will go to extra time and maybe penalties. Morocco, they've got a strong defence. Algeria, very good depth in attack. Both sides have good midfield as well, so this is a hard one to call. I think Morocco have more ways of winning. I think Algeria do have a strong chance of beating Morocco, but I'm going to lean towards Morocco to advance. And Zambia versus Senegal. Again, Zambia would have nothing to lose if they got to this stage, but I'm still going to go with Senegal to win. And now to the final 2 games. Firstly, I'll be predicting Algeria to beat Zambia, and for Morocco versus Senegal, definitely a tight game, I would expect. 2 of the biggest names currently. Close game, but I think Morocco will do this. They've got the defence, they've got clinical players. Hakimi, I will expect, will definitely be providing assists. I've got Morocco to win this tournament. How about you? What do you think? What do you think of my predictions? And what are your predictions overall? And what's the game you're looking forward to most? Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.